Namaskar, Shalom, Om Shanti. Welcome back to the Asian Center for Creative Theology. I'm Dr. Chris Kang. Today I'd like to share a reading from a text called the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of the great Indian epic, the Mahabharata. So the Bhagavad Gita, often translated as the Divine Song, contains many beautiful verses pertaining to faith, to devotion, to self-realization, to ethics, and has been a subject of much research and also been used in spiritual circles as a resource for meditation and spiritual practice. Today I'd like to read and reflect on one verse from the Bhagavad Gita, and that's verse 37 in book 4 of the Bhagavad Gita. And I'll read it in Sanskrit, followed by the English translation. Yataidam si samindoknir basmasat kurute Arjuna jnanapnye sarvakarmani basmasat kurute tatha. As the kindled fire reduces firewood to ashes, Arjuna, so the fire of knowledge reduces all actions to ashes. I repeat, as the kindled fire reduces firewood to ashes, Arjuna, so the fire of knowledge reduces all actions to ashes. Now the Bhagavad Gita unfolds as a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. So Krishna is the charioteer of Arjuna, and the dialogue takes place in the midst of an impending and actual war between two warring factions. Now, leaving aside the details of the background and history, I'd like to zoom in on this verse itself, which speaks of knowledge reducing all action to ashes. Just as the kindled fire reduces all firewood to ashes. So let's look at action. What do we mean by action? From a meditative perspective, action is not only our outer physical action, our behavior, but action or karma also pertains to our inner mental action, our intentional thought and emotion. When we perform an outer action, so to speak, they are often performed not in the light of awareness or wisdom, but rather unconsciously. Our actions are often motivated by a sense of self that exists autonomously and in isolation from everything else. So this sense of self is at the root of our afflictive emotions. Not simply a self that we adopt as a nominal or provisional identity, but it is a self that we cling to or grasp onto as if it exists in its own right, inherently separate from everything else, independent of everything else, an eternal, unchanging self. Now, not only is such a self a falsehood, it is also a source of great suffering through the generation of our greed, hatred, and delusion. For it is in defense of such a self that greed, hatred, delusion takes place. And not only are our outer actions like this, our so-called mental actions are also permeated by this false sense of selfhood. When we think or when we feel, when we intend, we make decisions, all of these mental activities occur not in the light of wisdom and awareness, but in the unconscious field of self. A self that is assumed to exist inherently and autonomously. A self that is permeated by and generating constantly impulses of craving, of clinging, of rejection and hostility, of resistance and ill will. And all of these afflictive states are permeated by a lack of awareness. So, in other words, our actions, whether outer or inner actions, are driven by the lack of understanding, rooted in a false, eternal, autonomous self. So, when we speak of the fire of knowledge, as in this verse in the Bhagavad Gita, what we are referring to is the fire of awareness, the white radiance of pure awareness. Awareness that is who we are, not what we do. Awareness that is the ground and the source of our being. Awareness that is the space within which all our activities occur and out of which all our activities are made. When we look deeply and inquire deeply, and when we are able in this process to see the unraveling of our constructed self, the revealing of this finite self, as it retraces its steps back into the awareness out of which it's made, one can compare this process to fire burning up the wood of activity, of action, of karma being burnt in the white fire of revealing and revealed awareness. So all our actions melt into the purity and radiance of our aware being. Each moment of recognition, each moment of resting in pure aware being, free of any form, construct, and designation, is a moment of awakening. In each timeless moment of awakening, time has died, action has ceased, and the wood has been burnt into ashes. But the process of realigning our day-to-day experience with this recognition might take forever. Realigning of our body, mind, and our sense of the world with this timeless recognition will continue. And as this process continues, this unfolding journey continues, we begin to have greater and greater moments of selflessness in the midst of experience, then we can see and taste and savor the bliss and freedom of awareness, radiant white fire of awareness shining through our every moment of experience. For in the end, what we are left with is simply awareness and its dynamic activity. Actions have dissolved, actions based and rooted in a separate self, an autonomous self, an unchanging self have dissolved. Dissolve into simply the dynamism and the playfulness of pure aware being. So wouldn't that be amazing? So dear friends, thank you for tuning in. I'll repeat these verses again as we come to the end of this sharing. Yathai si samindognya basmasat kurute Arjuna jnanapnik sarva karmani basmasat kurute tatha. As the kindled fire reduces firewood to ashes, Arjuna, so the fire of knowledge reduces all actions to ashes. May we abide in that white fire of radiant awareness that reduces all our egotistical, egocentric actions into ashes. Namaskar. Shalom. Om Shanti. Thank you.